think walking by faith and not by sight has really helped me get through my entire life. And my parents believe that too. I mean, they said, you were born like this for a reason, on purpose, for a purpose, not by mistake. And I know for a fact that being born without legs was absolutely not a mistake. Totally on purpose. 100% for a purpose. And in no way a mistake. My inspiration and motivation behind everything I do is that I know I was made, I was created to do this. I didn't even want to be a speaker. Speaking was definitely something that was chosen for me, something I was just made to do. I thought that it would just be my retirement plan. I didn't think I would be speaking right now. And God had other plans for me. The fact that I was born without legs and I never thought it was impossible to be an acrobat or an aerialist or power tumbler or play softball or basketball or volleyball, all against able-bodied athletes. My favorite verse, which actually is what the title of my book was derived from, where the inspiration for my book came from, is Mark 9:23. Everything is possible to the one who believes. I don't do what I do for myself. I do what I do because it's my destiny. It's how God is using me to reach people, to touch people. It's way bigger than me. Hey.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What an awesome, I think his mic is off. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go. What an awesome welcome. Thank you. We had such a great time here this morning with the kids, and I knew tonight would be no different. So it's nice to see so many of you out on a Wednesday night. It's our last night in Michigan. We've been here since, when, Saturday? I got my days
Actually,
mixed
Friday.
up. Friday.
Friday evening, yeah.
Yeah, Friday, that's right. We have been all over the place and then some. I have to share with you as we just right out the gate get started, how we ended up here, how we're here right now is such a God testimony. So Dominic's my husband, in case you didn't notice. Yes. Isn't he cute? So we have been traveling all over the world since 2 weeks after we got married. Just right out the gate, God just threw us in the fire. We did not plan on this. This was a God thing from the beginning. So we've been all over Europe, all over the Philippines, and all over the U.S. just in 2.5 years of being married with the shutdown. So God is moving. And he plays professional trombone for about 15 years, and he sings opera as well. And as you saw in the video, I have been doing aerial performing for about 15 years professionally. So God led us together to combining our talents and putting an act together. Me doing aerial, was teaching him aerial as well. He's pretty good. And playing professional trombone as well. So we did a hybrid and created a brand new act. Spent almost a year and a half, 2 years putting this act together. And all of last year, we were gearing up to be in D.C. from November until last month for a 72 show run with this show that we were with. And so we got there in November in DC, Everything's all ready, geared up, good to go, contract signed, amazing. The whole crew is there, 30-some people, performers, tech, everybody. We're in rehearsals and everything is just like, this is the best. We're gonna be here for 2.5 months. Like, finally, after a year and a half of not performing and all of this work and effort and time and money we put in to this new act. And day 2, they tell us that the whole thing is canceled.
After Jen mentioned that, we started out speaking together and doing everything together, and then everything shut down in March 2020, right? And then I'm a music teacher. I quit both my jobs in Austria and moved to the US. During the shutdown, Jen, being a speaker, performer, no events and no schools open. So we're like, what are we doing here? Now, God provided. God gave me jobs to work. God gave Jen jobs online and things like that. But this was something that we've worked for 1.5 years, and finally there was this great contract, and it was a good contract, good amount of money, and 72 shows of this performance that we put everything in, with like composer that we worked with for 1 year to put this 7.5 minutes music together that fit like a glove to our performance with trombone and live music and all these things.
Brand new costumes, which I love.
Everything shut down, and then we were like, yeah, God's providing and it's awesome and no big deal.
Yeah.
Then we stayed there for 2 weeks in Washington, D.C., finished the rehearsals, and we had one act, actually one performance. And then kind of reality hit, you know. And we were like, okay, so where are we living? What are we working? Where are we going now? Apartment is rented out. What are we doing?
Yeah, our apartment was rented out in LA because we were supposed to be gone for 2.5 months. And we're not trying to pay LA rent while we're gone, you know what I mean? So we were like, we got it so together, we're so good. And then, life, right? So now we're like, okay, God, like, what do you want us to do? So we went back to Illinois, where I'm from, and where my parents live, and we kind of got our bearings and started praying and asking God, like, what is it that you want us to do? And it was as if we forgot that we spoke together since we got married. I'm like, we were just so focused on this new act that we had kind of switched gears in our minds. And God immediately reminded us that, hey, this is what you do, And so we reached out to a woman in my hometown, and she just started reaching out to different people. And within a matter of days, we weren't even in Illinois 4 days, and God started opening door after door after door for us to go and speak, filled the entire month of January, this entire month, next month, the month after, and we're into April and May. And that is how we ended up here. I don't know if any of you know Steve Swaggerty. He's here somewhere. He is the one that reached out to us and organized the whole Michigan everything here. And so he's the man, he's the connector man. And so we are so grateful that he brought us here. We're grateful that God just, I wasn't grateful in the moment. I was really frustrated. I was really disappointed. I wanted that contract. I wanted to be there so bad. It was like the best thing ever. I just wanted everything about it. It was even better than I could have imagined once we got there. And then when it was taken out from underneath me, we're like, you're kind of flipped upside down, you're hit in the face, and all the emotions come. Frustration and disappointment and even anger and did we get something wrong? We put so much prayer into being here and all the things, right?
And it was at the same time, so I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
It was at the same time where we had to go back to Illinois to her parents. Now I, coming from Austria, quit both my jobs. That is already a thing. Not working as I wanted to, not providing as I wanted to, going back to newlyweds, going back to her parents, moving in with her parents. I was lit. I was like, this is such an embarrassment. Now we can move in with your parents again. I was really frustrated. And of course we believe and of course we have faith, but it gets tested sometimes.
Yes.
And it gets really real sometimes.
Yep.
And it was really frustrating at that time, at that very moment, to go back.
Yeah, it was really hard for us. We had that moment where it was just, like he said, real and raw and it's not that, yeah, we were tested in that moment. That's a really good way of saying it. We were just really seeing what we were made of, what our faith was made of in that moment. And through all of that, like I said, God provided, and he provided tremendously. And what I learned from that in real time, as we're living it right now, is that don't we just love to hold on to something and to think we know better? I mean, everything about that seemed so perfect, better than everything I wanted, and I did not want to let go, and I was frustrated that I was forced to let go. And God knows better than us. It says his ways are higher than our ways. We've heard this, but do we believe it? And that was, same with me. It's that come to Jesus, that moment right in your face where you have to ask yourself, do you believe what you say you believe? Do you believe what you have read? Do we actually believe it? And, even if you go through with the emotions and you get like we did with all the things, but eventually come to that moment where you see, and I can tell you that I'm past that moment, I'm in this right now, and what God has done, what we have experienced in the last month has blown our minds and filled our spirit in an overflow. Amen. In an overflow. In a way that 72 show run never could have done. Never could have done. And more importantly, I now see that God had to get us to Illinois. We would have never been there. And you want to know what's happening now? We are moving out of California, put an offer on our first home, and are in transition of moving that never would have happened. Never. God had to get us there to talk to us, to get us to focus on him, to see what he wanted for us. And he put us there purposely and then provided beyond our expectation. And what a lesson. I mean, this is still so fresh that every time we speak about it, he's still speaking to me. I'm speaking now and you're hearing it, but I'm being spoken to. Believe me. And as I've been speaking for years now, over 10 years, just all around the world and different places, and mostly my background was kind of corporate companies, and then I'd be kind of sprinkled in here and there, churches and universities and schools. And since we got married, it did a 180, and just God has been taking us to mostly all churches now since we've been married. And it's been with sprinkled in corporate here and there, so it reversed. And it's been so special to do that together. He's going to share, after I do, and just seeing how he has been refining us and drawing us closer to him, growing us spiritually. I mean, that whole story that we just told you has really, just even that, it's like over and over strengthening us. And what I realized after all these years of speaking, that, I share about my life, and I share about what God has done. And testimony, right? That's testimony. And that, there is life in that. There is power in that. I mean, the more I share about what God has done, it strengthens my faith. And hopefully yours. And that's for everyone. I would encourage you that anytime you have a testimony, anything that God has done in your life, share it and keep on sharing it the rest of your life. Because it will strengthen you and it will strengthen anybody who has ears to hear that is in earshot. God is so full circle. And his word never comes back void. And anybody hearing the truth and or speaking the truth is going to be strengthened and going to be impacted by that. And there is so much power in that. I can't believe how long I've been doing this, and I just had this huge revelation kind of recently in my life about speaking. I knew that I kind of learned a lot about my own life, about speaking about my life, but then I realized how much God was speaking to me as I was speaking to other people, and I thought, That is so you. I mean, this is the supernatural. This is God. That's how he is. He is divine and above what we can think and above what we can do. Every part of my life that I have just seen this in God. The first set of doctors told my parents I would never sit up on my own. Never sit up on my own. End of story, done deal. They had just adopted a baby girl with no legs. They had never fostered, never adopted. They didn't know anything about a baby born without legs. But they said yes to God and they were willing, period. They were not the most educated. They were not the most qualified. They are normal, small town, simple, just down to earth folks. And God sees our hearts. He sees our hearts and he will equip us where he has called us to go. I'll say that again. He will equip us where he has called us to go. And he's just that good. And as we know, what his plans are for us and where he takes us, even when he turns us upside down, it is for our benefit. It is what is most beneficial for us. It is what's best for us as a whole, more than what we can understand, because we truly don't know what's best for us all the time, often. And I know some of you are like, don't say that. I don't want to hear that. I know, but it's true, So if we can humble ourselves and kind of accept that fact and believe really that what God has for us is better, there is so much freedom in that. There is so much strength in that. There is so much, that is empowering. I am so empowered to be able to share what just happened with us and that we are kind of in a different place and how much we learn from that. And that is for everybody in this room. We are all going to get flipped upside down and or have been flipped upside down, and it's not going to stop. You know what I mean? And the same moment when those doctors told my parents, she's never going to sit up on her own. This is kind of a upside down moment, hit in the face. Wait, what did you say? That's not what I planned for her. That's not what we wanted for her future. But we have choices, right? Every day, doesn't stop. We're inundated. Choices. And they had a choice in that moment. And they got a second opinion. And they said, there's no way that's her future. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure they didn't think I'd be flipping around like a monkey and flying in the air. But they knew there had to be more. They didn't have all the answers, but they said there's got to be more. And that could have gone a lot of different ways, right? Went to the second hospital and talked to the doctor, and the first thing my dad says is, I just want to know, is she ever going to sit up on her own? Like, just answer that before we go anywhere else. And this doctor looked at him with all the confidence in the world and said, Mr. Bricker, she's going to do things that are beyond your wildest imagination. He said, she's going to do things that you never thought possible. And that's God. I think he's telling us that every day. If you can just give your life to me, you're going to do things that you never thought possible. And that's true. That's not like, oh, I'm being a good motivational speaker Christian. That's real. And that's equal to every one of us. If we can stop holding on to everything we think we know better, these things we love that we think are so much better, our way, what we want, if we can let go of that and open up and receive what he is trying to bless us with, even if it's a rebukement or refining or conviction, that's still blessing us because that's what's beneficial for us, then he will rock our world. It might not look like what we think, but he will blow the roof off the place every time. I have just seen it my whole life. I've lived it. I have seen him work through the very things that were supposed to be the destroyer in my life. Born without legs, left in a hospital, put up for adoption, not given a name. And if those are not the very things that he has chosen to use to show what he can do, that is how he works. People asked me when I was younger if there was a magic pill that I could take and magically have legs, would I take it? And I thought, I wonder if I would do it. That's a good question. And I wanted to answer honestly. So I thought about it for days, actually. I didn't answer for a while. I thought, now, ironically, I happen to love shoes. I mean, the high heels, the diamonds, the Jimmy Choos, the 4.5, 5-inch heels, because even if I had legs, I'd be probably like 5 feet tall. So I could do that, and I would love that. And I'd have me a nice shoe closet. I mean, maybe be a little bit broke, but my parents used to joke and say that if I had legs, they could never have afforded me because of how much I love shoes. People would buy me shoe ornaments. I'd have high heel shoes on my birthday cakes. I mean, I really love shoes, okay? So my first thoughts really were about this, And I thought, well, that would be awesome. And yeah, practically certain things in my life would be easier. They just would be. Certain things I'm not having to worry about, like if there's a ramp or getting in and out of the chair or, I don't know, just explaining everything to people all the time, all these things. But when I got right down to it to really answer the question, man, I thought, I can't do it. I can't take the pill. I couldn't do it. Every time I came back to the same answer, and I thought, am I willing to give up an entire purpose and destiny that God is using to reach millions of people just to make my life a little easier? How can you say yes to that? Because every time I came back to it, I thought, that's a selfish move. It just is. It just is. Because just to make something a little easier in my life, it's not worth giving up a destiny and a purpose that God has chosen with kingdom value. Because what I have learned so far, and I have a lot more to learn, so much more, is that just because something makes our life better, just because something makes our life easier, doesn't mean that that's the right thing for us, and certainly doesn't mean it's the most beneficial thing for us. It just doesn't. When I was younger, second grade actually, our school was really old and it was all stairs. There was no like ADA and elevators, and that's cute. Not where I came from. And so I just went up and down the stairs, parked my chair at the bottom, jumped out and hopped up the stairs and put my bag on my back, whatever. But, when the bell rang, everybody is all together switching classes up and down, and there's a lot of kind of mass chaos. So the school's kind of like, what if she gets her finger stepped on? How is she going to do this, And so they gave me an aide. And this aide we would leave class early, and she would carry my bag and, whatever, just helping me a little bit. And the school had great intentions. They were trying to help. But then it kind of got to this point where I couldn't even leave the classroom by myself to go to the bathroom without this lady. And I was like, even second grade, Jen was like, she's got to go. She's got to go. I can't with her, And it was so annoying to me, And even in second grade, and it's fascinating because as I look back on it, I was instinctively just rejecting this codependency because I had so much independence and freedom at home. My wheelchair was never even in the house, not until high school, when just so I could reach the stove to cook. So there was nothing modified in the house. There was no special treatment anywhere. And now I have this aid, and my parents thankfully saw the bigger picture. And they eventually got that aid gone because they said, we're raising her to be independent, not codependent. And she can't live in this bubble her whole life where everything is just catered to her and made easier for her, because that's not real life. can you imagine if they had kept that aid all through grade school, all through high school? You don't think that I would have been attached and accustomed to that? That I would have had someone helping me then as an adult? Of course I would have. I mean, the chances are very likely, let's put it that way. And it would have conditioned me to expect a certain behavior and lifestyle that I'm owed this. I'm not owed that, and it's not helping me. It might look like that on the outside, but I am not a victim to my circumstance. If Jesus is in my life, I am not a victim to that. I am a victor. And that's for all of us, right? We're all we all have totally different things going on in our lives. The one thing that we all have in common, everybody in the whole world, what we all have in common is obstacles and struggles. Right. It's like the ultimate equalizer. You know, nobody can escape it, doesn't discriminate. Everybody, no matter where we're from, how much money we make, whatever, nobody's free from it. And so I think the coolest thing, or something that really stands apart when you know Jesus and that we live with him, is that it's not an if, but it's a when the mountain comes, mountain being our struggles or obstacles. And we see that and we think, even sometimes we're kind of overwhelmed by it. We don't know what we're gonna do. We don't know how we're getting over there. We don't know the answers. But rather than looking at it and being paralyzed and never moving, or looking at it and running away from it, when we have our faith rooted in our Creator, we can look at that mountain, not have all the answers immediately, but know that somehow, some way, we can get over that, around it, or chip away every day and get through that. And this is that practical application where the faith comes into our life, and that's a game changer. That right there, I think, is where we win and lose it just before we've even done anything. It's that everything is possible to the one who believes. Believe is that key. Believing is the part that's going to allow us to even take a step to even believe that it's possible. And you know, we can speak life into each other. We can encourage each other to help in this process. We are called to. We are told to speak life into each other by encouraging each other, repeating truths, testimonies, truth, scripture, any of this stuff. That is speaking life into each other. I can tell you, I am a product of people speaking life into me. I was born without legs, and I just didn't even, I was like, yeah, of course I can tumble. It's whatever. Yeah, get over it. I don't have legs, so what? Move on. You know what I mean? Like, because I didn't, I was like, I have dark hair, and I don't have legs. Okay, good. Now can we move on? Like, that's how I thought about it, And I still think it that way, of course. But as a kid, I just didn't understand. And I'm glad that I didn't. And I see that that is powerful. And it's because of my family. It's because of my community. It's because the people that were in my everyday, day-to-day life made a choice to speak life into me. My coaches made a choice to just let me try and not say, I've never coached a person with no legs, I can't do this. Of course they've never coached somebody with no legs doing power tumbling and volleyball and all softball and basketball. Of course, but they said, I'll try it. They were willing. Right. So often I think that's all God asks of us, is just like the simplicity of opening up, submitting, giving whatever to Him, and saying, I'm here, I'm willing, use me. Man, that will change your life. It will change your life. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that it comes natural. It is not natural. It is not natural to your flesh. It is not natural to our culture. It is the opposite, actually, than what most people will tell us. But it is the most beneficial. It is the most filling. Nothing. I have been all over the world to over 23 countries. I've performed with Britney Spears. I've performed in front of 20,000 people multiple times, spoken for thousands of people, and nothing. Now, those things were awesome. Don't get me wrong. And I'm grateful for those things. And God opened those doors. But none of that holds a candle to the fulfillment when the Holy Spirit is filling you and you are doing what God has called you to do in His will and His timing. And this is for everyone. Every single one of us has gifts and talents and abilities. Don't let anyone make you think that you're a mistake, that you're an accident, that you have nothing to offer the world. That is a lie. Flat out. And you have to make the choice whether you believe that or not. You don't have to believe that, because that's not what the Word of God says. You have purpose with eternal kingdom value. Equal value to anybody else's. I don't care how many followers, how much influence, how many people see them on TV, how many books they have. It does not matter. The value in the talents and gifts and abilities are equal. Can you say equal?
Equal.
Can you say it again?
Equal.
I just want you to remember that. Anytime you doubt and you think, yeah, but I don't have a lot of followers, Jen, but nobody really pays attention. I don't have a stage. I don't have a platform. You do. The people in your everyday, day-to-day life, that's your platform. That's your stage. People are watching. They pay attention. You are making an impact whether you think you are or not. What you're doing with your choices every day, what we do with our choices every day, it has consequences and it has an impact. And that can either be for the kingdom or not. And every one of us was made to inspire and motivate and change people's lives through the things that God has given us for Him. That's for everyone. Don't believe the lie that it's just for certain special hand-picked people. Diversity in gifts, yes. Our talents look different. The things that we have are different. But thank God, because it's creative and more interesting, but He's practical. It's practical because you reach people I don't reach, and vice versa. And this is how the world is reached. Isn't that so cool? Isn't that so cool?
Yeah.
I just want to leave you guys with just reminding you, or maybe for the first time you're hearing it, or maybe it's just a tap, whatever it is, wherever you are in your life, that what is it that you love, the passions, the things that you're naturally good at, or maybe your hobbies is what people will call it, and just know that God will use your personality. He will use the things that you're like. My report card in school would be like, Jen uses her time well, she plays well with others, but she talks a little too much. And look at God using it. You know what I mean? Right? So He'll use anything. Whatever it is, you're an athlete, you like to play piano, you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever it is, if you fully give that to God and just say, open up that hand again. I can't do that enough and say that enough. Because I know I like to control too, with the best of them. But if we can humble ourselves and believe that His ways are higher, that believe that He has a purpose for you, believe that you are here for a reason, not for an accident, believe that your life is more valuable than you can ever possibly imagine. And with that, all of those things, talents, gifts, abilities, purpose, life, they are all for kingdom value with eternal purpose. That means it lasts now and in heaven. It does not go away. When we do what He has called us to do, that stands through the fire, and that stands through this time into eternity. Yep. If that is not something to get excited for and to wake up every day, then nothing compares to that. I think that's a good place to end and let Dominic start. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Jen. Sometimes I'm thinking, how should I continue speaking after that? That's really hard. But I don't rely on myself. I'm like, Lord, whatever you want to say, that's right. That's fine for me. So I told you earlier, we have been married for 2.5 years, and 3.5 years ago, not just 3.5 years ago, a little shorter, is when I first heard of Jen. And my life before that was very different. You might have sensed a little accent already. I'm from Austria, not Australia, Austria, Europe. So if you
Happens
look,
all the time.
yeah. So if you look at the map of Europe, it's right in the middle. It's a very small country, right in the middle. Compared to, like, if you want to compare it to states in the US, it's comparable to Maine, kind of, the size and population and stuff. I grew up very similar to Jen, actually, in a small town. So a lot of things that we have in common. Growing up in a small town, having small community, having like a soccer club, and what was really popular when I grew up was brass instruments and wind bands, and that's really big. So there's no baseball, basketball, and football in Austria. So you're like, what is there, right? It's basically soccer and music. Music is big in Austria, and that's what my passion was growing up. So 10 years old, I had kind of make a decision, either soccer or music. So I decided music. My dad was playing an instrument in the band, and I wanted to do the same thing. So my childhood was fun. My parents are farmers. I grew up on that farm, learning how to do everything, playing outside, getting dirty, playing with my friends, all this stuff. Now, there's some things that were a little different, because my parents didn't know the Word of God, and they didn't go to church. Well, they did kind of go to church, because where I grew up, I always say I'm raised Catholic by culture. Not Catholic because I believe that, but Catholic by you just go to church because everybody else goes to church. And you step in and some things are said and you go through the motions, and afterwards you step out and it's completely separate from your life, your personal life. It's completely unattached. So we would never talk about our faith, we'd never talk about God, nor what was spoken in the church or anything like that. So there were some key things, for example, the gospel, that I didn't understand. For example, yeah. And growing up, especially when I was 10 years old, that's when it kind of started to experience the things of the world. When I was first exposed to pornography when I was 10 years old. And then when I was 13 years old, going out to nightclubs till like 5, 6 in the morning, drinking hard stuff like whiskey and vodka and all these alcohols, and really just rough. I don't even want to name everything. But having girlfriends over in our home was normal. Me going somewhere, sleeping over a different house was totally normal. And if you would meet my parents, you would say, they're the nicest people. They are really together. They are really hard workers. They are really honest. They have integrity. They are beautiful people. I always loved my parents and still do dearly love my parents. But the Word of God was missing. And it's missing the whole culture. The first time I met a Christian, I was about 20, 21 years old. So when Jen first told me about celibacy, I thought that's for like monks or nuns maybe, or something like that. And I was not even joking. I thought, when she first mentioned that to me, when we got to know each other the first time, I thought, well, that's good for you. What's the difference of me not having sex with my girlfriend and I can just hang out with my friends? That's what I thought, honestly. And that turned really quickly. But yeah, up to that point, when I grew up, it didn't really change. So what I struggled with the most was always, what is life about? Why am I here? This doesn't make any sense. And especially being exposed to intimate relationships when you're 13, 14 years old, that binds you to a person that is just not supposed to be like that. And I know many of you know that, but for me it was so real. It was almost as if I would be in a spell or something. I was worshiping the person that I was with, truly, because that's what I thought. I was so drawn to that person. It just so happened it wasn't the most faithful person. So she was cheating on me, she was lying to me, she was sleeping with other people and all that, and I would not believe that. So my friends would come here to me and say, she's cheating on you, she's going somewhere else. I mean, she's lying to you. And I said, no, she told me she's not. And I truly believed that. My parents would tell me the same thing, and I wouldn't listen to anybody else anymore, nor would I share anything with anybody else anymore. And that would go on for years, and it would go down, and just me, myself, and emotions, and so many things going on that I could never figure out. And just crying and going down in that depressive state. Drinking never stopped, smoking never stopped. And up until that point where I was like 19 or so, and I drive that road down to the military. I was in the military band actually, so music always stuck with me too. And I was playing trombone, still do, in the military. So driving there to the base, I was thinking, there's this concrete pillar right beside the interstate. And I was thinking, driving right on that pillar. But then my family came into my mind, my friends came into my mind, and I thought, I can't do that. For me, it would just be blackout. That's what I thought. But I said, maybe next week. I can't do it. So next week was the same thing, week next was the same thing. So I'm still standing here, so I'm grateful that kind of God prevented me from that. And then later on, being at festivals, that lifestyle just brings all this stuff with me. I would be full of alcohol and drugs, and I really thought I'm gonna die. I really thought I'm gonna drown where I was laying there in this river, and I couldn't get up anymore till the ambulance come and took me away. And right now I'm thinking, why? That is so unnecessary. This is so unnecessary. Why did I do that? My parents always had money. I had a great childhood. I remember up until 10 years old, I had the best childhood that I could imagine. I was always so grateful for my parents, and I thought, how? Why? This is so unnecessary. Why did I have to go through that? But, and I said it this morning too, I always knew in my spirit the things that I did was wrong. So there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for these decisions that I made, because in my spirit, this is wrong. I shouldn't be with that person. I shouldn't be with that friend that always taps me on the shoulder. Hey, you don't want to do this? You want to do that? That's wrong. I knew that's wrong, but I was disobedient to God tapping me on the shoulder already. And it was either women or career when I was in my 20s, college years. So I would, like I said, play trombone, and I kind of really was into listening to opera singers, because in the classical world, all the instrumentalists orient themselves on the opera singers. So long story short, I went into opera, and that's what I really did from 6 in the morning till 11 in the evening. I went to a different town, capital, Vienna. That's kind of the center of music in Europe, or maybe the center of the world, even of classical music. I moved there in an apartment just by myself to be not distracted by anybody else, just me and my goals. So I went out of this depressive state with personal development, listening to motivational speakers, and doing all these things that are good. But they would just tell me, you have to have a purpose, you have to have a plan, you have to have that desire, you have to have that burning desire in your heart to follow these dreams and write down these goals. And I would do that from the morning till the evening. I was obsessed with reaching my goals. Now I was coming out of that, so I was happy, I would say. At times I was happy, but I saw this success really happening. And people around me, they would say, wow, you just started with this singing, and now you're singing that main role, that title role in this opera with an orchestra and with all these other singers. And it's amazing. And I would say to myself, why do I continue with this when I just get more of the things that I already have? I have a car, maybe I get a bigger car. I have an apartment, maybe I have a house, or later on a mansion if I just following my dreams and only focusing on my goals and nothing else. Or this is not what life is about. I thought I had a sense of a creator in somewhere back there, or somewhere back there in my spirit. I knew that I was created, and I knew life was not just sitting down and writing down goals and being so faking up my emotions and being excited about these goals and just reaching them. Just reaching goals until I check the next box on my bucket list. The next box is not what life is about. That I knew. And at that very year, that was in 2018, in the beginning of 2018, I'm alone in my apartment, and I dropped on my knees, and I was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And I remember the Lord's Prayer coming into my mind, because that's the only thing I knew from the Bible. That's the only thing I knew from the Bible, and God used that. And He gave me a full revelation of what the Lord's Prayer means. I mean, a full revelation. I call my best friend, I leave him a 15 minutes voice message and explain the Lord's Prayer to him. I've never heard a preacher in my life. I've never read the Bible in my life. And I knew there was a kingdom. God wants to establish a kingdom. I remember telling him that. His will be done and not ours. And that He wants to use us, that He's using us for establishing His kingdom. And I was overwhelmed because I thought, how are you using me with that? I have no idea. And the only reaction that I could have to that was just crying and crying. Now, we found a journal of Jen, and it wasn't that very time in 2018 when she was praying for her future husband. At that very time. And God was really using that, and God was answering her prayers. Now, half a year later, I see this flyer. I forgot about that very moment, that encounter that I already had with the Holy Spirit there. I forgot about it because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't even know a Christian. I didn't know where to go to. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I saw this flyer out of nowhere, right? That said, Jen Bricker, born without legs, put her for adoption, and God is leading her life, and God gives her purpose. Before I thought, I choose my purpose, and this said, God gives her purpose. God gives us purpose. Now I thought, I don't know really what that means, but I'm going to find out. So I went to this event. It was a speaking event in Austria. Jen was speaking in Austria. I went there. She was telling about her life. It was really an incredible evening. She sold her book there. It's translated in 11 languages. One of them is German. So my first language. I bought the book in German, went home, and reading the book was something I've never experienced, because I never met a person that had such an outlook of life, and so much life, and so much peace, and so much inspiration, but not inspiration of the world where I just want to jump up and pursue my goals and grab on to my destiny kind of motivation. No, it was sitting there, and I had absolute peace for the first time in my life. I truly believe. It sounds cheesy, but I was sitting there and I thought, this is amazing. I've never heard somebody speak like that. And I thought to myself, I would really like to be with a person like that. This is incredible. I really thought that. And I knew I had to reach out to her, so I didn't have a phone number, no email address, didn't even know a person who knew her. So I thought, what am I gonna do? I was looking online, found her on Facebook, connected on Facebook. Yeah. I did not want to do that. But I took time, wrote a nice message, and she actually responded. There were about 7 events within 1.5 weeks, several hundred, if not more than 1,000 books that she sold there. And we spoke for about 20 seconds. She says she remembers me in a glimpse second. And long story short, we just kept communicating for about 2 months. She sends me sermons of her pastor. That's how it all started. I couldn't listen to anything else but that. I was so consumed by these sermons. I said, finally somebody's telling the truth. And I decided to fly to the US, first time for me in the US. So I went there to Los Angeles. She was showing me around, Hollywood sign, the stars, all these things in Los Angeles. On the last day, she took me to church, and I sit down at church, and the pastor talks about purpose. What is life about? What is purpose? And he talks about God is your purpose and Jesus is your purpose. And I was sitting there and to myself I thought, okay, I know this is the truth. Finally somebody is saying it, but I don't really know who God is. I don't really know who Jesus is. I didn't understand the relationship with the Father yet, and I didn't understand really truly who God is, that he has a character, that there are things he loves and things he hates, that there are attributes to the Father's heart, that there are things that he wants from us, that he's very specific. He's very clear with what is right and what is wrong. And I was sitting there thinking these things to myself, just thinking, I don't really know who God is really. And the pastor says, well, I prepared a sermon today, but the Holy Spirit is telling me right now I need to change it because I need to explain who God is. And he says, he's the Alpha and he's the Omega. He's the creator. He's the one why we're here. Through Christ, we were created. And in him, the world holds together. And we live through him. He explained the relationship that the Father has with the Son. And finally, I got it explained. And I was just, that was my encounter that I had with Christ. Now, the same day I flew home to Vienna, ordered the Bible, and I've never put that book down. And it transformed my life. I'm telling you, from 2 months later, I got baptized. 2 months after that, I proposed. We got married 3 months after that. Off to the Philippines and speaking in front of 40,000 people in Sunday service, morning shows with 10 million people watching. I was just, wow, what is God doing? I think he was just showing me what he could do. He doesn't have to do that. He didn't need to do that. But he was just showing me what he can do when we submit our plans. And I was not just singing and the trombone playing and music and all these things. I love them. I still love these things. But now it's about kingdom value, what Chen said. I don't care about these things here anymore. I don't care about cars and apartments and houses and all these things. We just made life decisions, something like moving to a different country, maybe getting married or not, moving out of a different state, buying a house or not, having a family or not. These kind of decisions are clear now because I was reading John 14 and it says, I will prepare a mansion for you. I'll prepare a place for you and I will not leave you as orphans. I will come back. And I thought buying a house is not that big of a deal actually. You know, it's not that big of a deal because it's not about that anymore. It's about only the treasures that we collect in heaven. It's only about this fruit that is collecting in heaven. And that's truly what it is about. And it's only this eternal value that Chen was talking about. I give you another promise that God showed me through reading the Bible all the time. He said, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and it will be open, right? And the world twisted these verses so much, thinking that we can just ask for whatever we want and seek our things. But he says it has to be in his will. And I'm telling you, when we ask, Lord, what is your will for my life? How does your purpose look for my life? How does it look like? What is the vision that you give me? Not what I want, but what you want, Lord. And I want to walk down and I ask you, Lord, give me whatever it takes to fulfill